a struggling student, gave up her seat for an old lady, unaware her grandson was a millionaire. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into the story. It was a cold afternoon in late autumn, and the bus was packed as usual, with people hurrying to their destinations, tired and lost in their own thoughts. Among the crowd, there was a young student named Emily. She had just finished her part-time job at a local coffee shop and was on her way to class. She wore a second-hand coat that had seen better days, and her shoes, though practical, were scuffed from overuse. Emily sat in her seat near the back of the bus, her eyes fixed on the window as she tried to push away the stress of the day. She had no idea that her life was about to change with just one simple act of kindness. As the bus rumbled along the road, the doors opened at the next stop. An elderly woman entered, hunched over and struggling to find a place to sit. Her frail hands gripped the handrail, and her face showed the wear and tear of many years. Emily noticed the woman immediately. Her heart went out to her. Without a second thought, she stood up and offered her seat to the elderly lady, smiling gently. "Please, take my seat," Emily said softly. The woman looked at her with surprise, her eyes briefly meeting Emily's, before she slowly lowered herself into the seat, murmuring her thanks. Emily remained standing, holding onto the pole as the bus continued on its way. She felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, knowing that such a small gesture could make a difference to someone who needed it. Little did she know that the elderly woman, Mrs. Barbara, was not just any ordinary old lady. She was the grandmother of a young, successful businessman named Jake, a millionaire who owned a large tech company. Jake, who had been raised with privilege, had everything he could ever ask for except for one thing: the ability to connect with people on a real, meaningful level. His life had always been filled with business meetings, expensive dinners, and the constant pressure of maintaining a flawless image. But what he lacked was genuine human connection, the kind of connection that Emily had unknowingly offered to his grandmother. Jake had always been curious about people who didn't have the same life as he did, people who had to work hard every day just to get by. And when Mrs. Barbara told him about the young woman who had so kindly given up her seat on the bus, he was intrigued. He wanted to find out more about this selfless stranger, someone who seemed to embody the kindness and simplicity he felt was missing from his own life. Little did Emily know that her simple act of kindness would lead her into a world far beyond anything she could imagine. What started as a small, thoughtful gesture would soon turn into a life-changing opportunity, one that would forever alter the paths of both Emily and Jake. After the bus ride, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the elderly woman she had helped. She wondered if she would ever see her again. Despite the brief interaction, it felt like something meaningful had passed between them. The next few days were filled with her usual routine, attending classes, working late at the coffee shop, and barely having enough time to take care of herself. But little did she know, the elderly woman's family was about to cross her path in a way she never could have imagined. One afternoon, as Emily was walking out of her last class of the day, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Hi, is this Emily? I'm Jake, the grandson of Mrs. Barbara, the woman you gave your seat to on the bus. I would love to meet with you. Please let me know when you are available." Emily stared at the message in confusion. She had completely forgotten about the elderly woman and had no idea that this was coming. She thought about it for a moment, then decided to reply. "Sure, I'm free tomorrow after my shift at the coffee shop. Let me know what time works." The next day, she found herself nervously waiting at a cafe, unsure of what to expect. A few minutes later, a man in his late 20s walked in. He was dressed in a smart suit, his posture confident yet casual. Jake's sharp features contrasted with his warm smile, and there was something in his eyes that made Emily feel both anxious and intrigued. "Emily?" he asked, his voice calm and inviting. She nodded, standing up to greet him. They shook hands, and she could feel the slight tremble in her palm as she introduced herself. "It's nice to meet you," Emily said, her voice a little softer than she intended. "I didn't expect to hear from you." Jake smiled again. My grandmother was so touched by your gesture, and she insisted I reach out to you. You didn't just give her your seat, you gave her something more kindness, something she hasn't felt in a long time. Emily blinked, a bit taken aback by his words. She had only done what seemed right in the moment. But hearing Jake talk about it made her realize the impact it had. They sat down, and Jake ordered a coffee for each of them. As they talked, Emily learned more about Jake's life. He was a tech entrepreneur, running a successful company that had taken off in the last few years. Despite his wealth and success, he spoke about his life in a way that felt distant, as if there was something missing. Emily couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for him. He wasn't like the other people she had encountered who were also well off. He didn't brag about his achievements or flaunt his wealth. Instead, there was a quiet sadness to him, a longing for something real, something meaningful. As they continued talking, Jake told Emily that he often felt disconnected from others. His life was full of business deals and events, but he lacked genuine friendships and the kind of connections that made life feel worthwhile. It's strange, Jake confessed, his voice low. I have everything I could want, success, money, the best connections, but I still feel empty. When I heard about what you did for my grandmother, it made me wonder if there's more to life than just achievements and status. Emily felt a sense of unease. She was just an ordinary student, struggling to make ends meet. She didn't know how to respond to his vulnerability. She hadn't expected a conversation about wealth and loneliness to happen when she had agreed to meet him. But Jake's honesty made her think. Maybe she was just too caught up in her own struggles to notice that even people with everything could feel isolated. After a few hours of conversation, Jake stood up and smiled at her. I'm really glad we met, Emily. You've shown me something I hadn't seen before, the importance of kindness and human connection. Thank you for that. Emily smiled back, though she was still uncertain about where this meeting was going. She never expected something so simple, so small, to turn into a moment of deep reflection for someone as successful as Jake. They exchanged contact information, and as they parted ways, Emily couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold for her and the mysterious man who had walked into her life because of one act of kindness. Over the next few days, Emily couldn't stop thinking about her meeting with Jake. His words echoed in her mind as she walked between her classes, each step feeling heavier than the last. She had never imagined that a simple act of kindness, offering her seat to an elderly woman on a bus, would lead her into a world of wealth, business, and deep emotional vulnerability. What had started as an ordinary day had suddenly turned into something far more complicated. As the days passed, Jake's messages kept coming, each one more personal than the last. He thanked her again for her kindness and asked if she would meet him for coffee again. Emily hesitated at first, unsure of where this was going. But something about Jake's sincerity, his quiet longing for connection, made her agree. She found herself at the same cafe, waiting for him to arrive. When Jake walked in, he looked different somehow. There was a shift in his demeanor, a sense of purpose in his steps that hadn't been there during their first meeting. He smiled when he saw her, but there was something deeper in his eyes, a curiosity that made Emily nervous. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Jake began as they sat down. You mentioned feeling disconnected, like everything was moving fast but nothing felt real. I feel the same way, but in a different context. I have all the wealth and success I could ask for, but I lack the genuine human connections that make life worthwhile. I've been surrounded by people who see me as a business opportunity, not as a person. But meeting you, it felt different. You're not like them. Emily looked at him, feeling a mix of surprise and uncertainty. She hadn't expected Jake to open up to her so much. It was strange to hear someone with so much success admit to feeling lonely, to feel like he was constantly surrounded by people who didn't see him for who he truly was. I don't know what to say, Emily replied, a little caught off guard by his confession. I'm just a college student, trying to make ends meet. I don't know how much help I can be. Jake leaned in, his gaze softening. It's not about help, Emily. It's about real connection. You've shown me something that no one else has. You showed me that there's more to life than just the things I've worked so hard for. I don't know if you realize this, but when you gave up your seat to my grandmother, you didn't just give her your seat. You gave her something far more valuable, kindness. And in turn, You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing." Emily felt a flutter in her chest. It was hard to believe that she, a struggling student, could have made such an impact on someone like Jake. She was just trying to do the right thing in that moment, to help someone who needed it. But to him, it meant so much more. She tried to push away the overwhelming feeling of uncertainty that bubbled up inside her. "I never expected anything in return," she said quietly. "I just thought it was the right thing to do." Jake smiled, his eyes thoughtful. "I know. That's what makes it so powerful. It wasn't about expecting anything. It was about your genuine kindness. You didn't know who I was, and that's what made it so real. I've been thinking a lot about how I can make a real difference in the world, and I think that starts with people like you, people who show kindness without asking for anything in return." Emily looked at him, a sense of awe beginning to settle in. She never expected her small gesture would lead her into the world of Jake's wealth and influence. She also didn't expect to find someone so likable, so vulnerable, despite all the success. "Jake," she began, her voice tentative, "I'm not sure where this is going, but I'm glad we're talking. It's nice to know that kindness, even in a small way, can make a difference." Jake's smile deepened. "I think it's more than that, Emily. I think it's the beginning of something, a connection between two people who are just trying to find their way in this world." As they talked more, the weight of their conversation lifted, and Emily realized that despite the differences in their lives, they both were searching for the same thing, meaning and connection. As they parted ways that day, Emily felt a spark of hope, a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in a long time. She didn't know what the future held, but she couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of something important, not just for her, but for Jake too. In the following weeks, Emily and Jake's relationship grew stronger, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Jake kept reaching out to Emily, inviting her to coffee or lunch, and they would talk for hours about their different worlds. Despite the contrast in their lives, they found common ground in their conversations. Jake shared his struggles with his company, the pressure he felt from his family to expand the business even further, and his constant battle with loneliness. Emily, in turn, spoke about her struggles balancing school, work, and her responsibilities at home. She shared her dreams of becoming an artist, but she also confessed the fear that held her back, the fear that she wouldn't succeed, that her art wouldn't be good enough to make a living. It wasn't long before Emily began to notice a shift in herself. Jake's presence in her life had a way of calming her. He encouraged her to believe in herself, to push past the self-doubt that often clouded her creativity. He listened intently when she spoke about her dreams, never once dismissing them, and always offering advice with genuine interest. It was clear that Jake wasn't just the millionaire tech entrepreneur. He was someone who truly cared, someone who wanted to make a difference in the world, but more importantly, in the lives of those around him. One evening, after a long day of classes, Emily received a call from Jake. "Hey, Emily." Jake's voice was warm as always. "I've been thinking about you. I know you've been struggling with your art, and I wanted to help." Emily paused, surprised by his words. "Help with my art? How?" "Well," Jake continued, "I've been speaking with my team, and we're planning an art exhibit to showcase the work of up-and-coming artists. I think you have something special, Emily. I want to help you get your work out there, give you the platform to show it to the world." Emily's heart skipped a beat. This was beyond anything she had ever expected. She had always dreamed of showing her art to a larger audience, but the idea of doing it with the support of someone like Jake seemed impossible. She stammered, unsure of how to respond. "Jake, I don't know what to say. This is amazing, but I don't think I'm ready. My work isn't perfect." Jake's voice softened, and she could almost picture the smile on his face. "Emily, it's not about perfection. It's about the journey, the message, the emotion behind your work. I've seen your art, and I believe in it. You've got what it takes to inspire others. Don't let fear hold you back." Emily felt a tear slip down her cheek. She had never realized how much she had needed to hear those words, how much she had needed someone to believe in her. "Okay," she said softly, wiping away the tear. "Okay, I'll do it." A few weeks later, the art exhibit was set up in one of the most prestigious galleries in the city. Emily's work, her paintings, and sketches were displayed alongside other talented artists. The gallery was filled with people, critics, art lovers, and curious onlookers. Emily stood nervously by her pieces, feeling a sense of pride mixed with anxiety. This was the moment she had been waiting for, and it felt surreal to see her art hanging on the walls of such an important place. Jake appeared beside her, his usual calm presence reassuring her. "You've done it, Emily," he said, his voice full of pride. "Look at what you've achieved." Emily glanced at her work, the vibrant colors and intricate details of her paintings now on display for the world to see. She couldn't believe it. This was her dream coming true. And it wasn't just because of Jake's help, it was because of her own courage to take the leap. The evening went by in a blur, with people admiring her work and even offering to buy a few pieces. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt like she was on the right path. She had always been afraid of failure, but now she realized that success wasn't about avoiding mistakes. It was about learning from them and pushing forward. As the night drew to a close, Emily stood outside the gallery with Jake, looking up at the city lights. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." Jake smiled, his eyes warm. "You did the hard work, Emily. I just helped you find the courage to take that first step." In that moment, Emily understood. It wasn't just about the art, or the gallery, or even the success that came with it. It was about finding someone who truly believed in her, someone who helped her see her own worth. And for the first time in a long while, Emily felt like she had found her place in the world. As the weeks passed, Emily's life began to change in ways she had never imagined. The art exhibit was a turning point, a moment where she realized that her dreams weren't just fantasies anymore, they were within reach. However, as the success of her work started to grow, so did the pressure. Emily found herself torn between school, her growing art career, and the unexpected closeness she was beginning to feel toward Jake. It wasn't just about business anymore. There was a connection between them that was undeniable. Yet, Emily still hesitated. She knew Jake was wealthy, successful, and powerful. She, on the other hand, was still a student, barely making ends meet, trying to find her place in a world that seemed to belong to people like him. One evening, after a long day of meetings and art commissions, Emily received a message from Jake. "Hey, Emily, I was thinking of taking you to dinner tomorrow night. I know you're busy, but it's been a while since we've had time to talk. Let me know if you're free." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had grown fond of Jake, but there was still something that made her hold back. She didn't want to seem too eager or like she was taking advantage of his kindness. She replied after a moment of hesitation, "Sure, I'd love to. Tomorrow night sounds great." The next evening, Emily dressed in her best outfit, trying her best to look presentable, despite the fact that her budget was tight. She arrived at the upscale restaurant Jake had chosen, her nerves tingling as she walked through the door. Jake was already waiting for her at a table by the window. When he saw her, his eyes lit up, and he stood to greet her with a warm smile. "You look amazing," he said, his voice genuine. Emily smiled shyly, taking a seat across from him. "Thank you. I'm still getting used to all of this," she said, glancing around at the luxurious setting. Jake chuckled. "You don't have to get used to it, Emily. You belong here as much as anyone else." They began talking, just as they had done so many times before, but tonight felt different. There was a palpable tension between them, a subtle undercurrent of something more than friendship. As the evening wore on, their conversation shifted from casual topics to more personal ones. Jake spoke about his childhood, about the challenges of growing up in a wealthy family, and how he had always felt the weight of expectations on his shoulders. Emily listened intently, realizing that Jake's life, despite all his success, had been filled with its own struggles. He wasn't just the man who owned a thriving tech company. He was someone who had worked hard to get where he was. Someone who had fought against the loneliness and isolation that often came with wealth. "You know," Jake said, his voice softening, "sometimes I wonder if all this success is worth it. I've built something incredible, but I'm not sure if I've found what truly matters yet. That's why I wanted to help you, Emily. You showed me something I hadn't seen in years, the importance of kindness, of real connection. It's something I've been missing." Emily was taken aback by his honesty. She had always seen Jake as the successful entrepreneur. But now she was beginning to see him as more than that. He was just a person, struggling with his own demons. Much like her. "I don't know if I'm the right person to help you find what matters, Jake," she said quietly, her voice full of uncertainty. "I'm still trying to figure that out myself." Jake reached across the table and gently took her hand in his. "You've already helped me more than you know, Emily. Your kindness, your willingness to open up to me, that's what's made the difference. You remind me of what really matters in life." Emily felt a warmth spread through her as she looked into Jake's eyes. She had never expected her life to change so dramatically, but now she could see how much it had already transformed. She wasn't just an art student anymore. She was someone who had made a real impact on someone's life. The rest of the dinner passed by in a blur. As they said their goodbyes, Jake walked her to her car. "I know you're still figuring things out," Jake said, his voice serious. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what." Emily smiled, her heart full. "Thank you, Jake. I think I'm starting to figure things out." As she drove home that night, Emily couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She had been just a struggling student, unsure of her future, and now she was on the cusp of something much bigger. She wasn't alone anymore. She had Jake by her side, and with his support, she knew that anything was possible. The days following their dinner together were filled with a new sense of purpose for Emily. She had always been focused on surviving, on simply getting by. But now she was beginning to see that there was more to life than just pushing through. Jake's belief in her, his support, and his understanding had opened her eyes to the possibility that she could achieve more than she ever thought possible. She was no longer just a struggling student. She was an artist with a future. However, with this new sense of hope came new challenges. As Emily's art career continued to take off, she found herself in the midst of a whirlwind. She was offered opportunities to showcase her work at more galleries, and even had collectors showing interest in purchasing her pieces. The pressure to keep up with the demand was intense. She often found herself working late into the night, trying to balance her art with her studies. She had little time for anything else. Meanwhile, Jake had been offering her more and more opportunities, from helping her navigate the art world to introducing her to influential people who could help her career grow. Though she appreciated everything he was doing for her, a small part of Emily began to feel overwhelmed. She didn't want to be seen as someone who was only successful because of Jake's connections. She wanted to prove that she could stand on her own, without anyone's help. One afternoon, while working on a new piece of art at her small studio apartment, Emily received a call from Jake. She hesitated before answering. "Hey, Emily. I've been thinking." Jake's voice came through, calm and soothing as always. "There's an art gala coming up next week, and I think it would be a great opportunity for you to showcase your work. I've already spoken to the event organizers, and they're excited to have you there." Emily felt a wave of anxiety rush through her. "Jake, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I don't know. I feel like I'm just using your connections to get ahead. I want to do this on my own, without anyone's help." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Jake responded. "I understand how you feel, Emily, but the truth is, you've already done the hard work. Your art speaks for itself. I'm not giving you opportunities because I want to take credit for your success. I'm doing it because I believe in you. You have something special, and the world deserves to see it." Emily was silent for a moment, contemplating his words. Part of her still felt like she wasn't ready, like she wasn't good enough to take that next step. But another part of her knew that Jake was right. She had worked hard, and she deserved the chance to show the world what she could do. "Okay," Emily said softly, the weight of her decision settling in. "I'll do it. I'll take the opportunity." The gala was a night to remember. The venue was stunning, with elegant chandeliers hanging from the ceiling and a polished hardwood floor that gleamed under the soft lighting. People in expensive suits and dresses mingled, admiring the art displayed on the walls. Emily stood beside her paintings, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. This was her moment. She had worked so hard to get here, and now she was finally getting the recognition she deserved. As the night went on, people stopped to look at her work, and many complimented her on her unique style. Some even asked if her pieces were for sale, and before long, a few of them were bought by art collectors. Emily couldn't believe it. She had just sold her first few pieces at a prestigious event, and the feeling was overwhelming. As the night came to a close, Jake approached her, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Emily," he said, his voice full of admiration. You prove to everyone and to yourself that you have what it takes." Emily smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Jake. I couldn't have done it without you." Jake shook his head, a gentle smile on his face. "You did it yourself. I just helped you see the potential you always had." In that moment, Emily realized that Jake had been right all along. She had always doubted herself, always questioned whether she was good enough. But now, with the success she had achieved, she knew that she was ready for whatever came next. She wasn't just an artist anymore. She was a woman who had fought for her dreams, and she had the world at her feet. As the evening ended, Emily felt a sense of peace. She had come a long way from the struggling student she once was, and with Jake by her side, she knew she could face whatever challenges the future had in store for her. Emily had come a long way since that fateful bus ride. Her art career was blossoming, and she had gained a newfound confidence that came with success. However, as the months passed, a part of her couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that lingered beneath the surface. Despite all the progress, Emily found herself at a crossroads. The more she grew in her career, the more she realized that her relationship with Jake was becoming complicated. They had been spending a lot of time together, and their bond had deepened in ways that went beyond friendship. Jake had become an anchor in her life, supporting her in ways she had never experienced before. Yet, with each passing day, Emily felt more torn. She knew that Jake's wealth and success had played a huge role in her own achievements, and while she was grateful, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered doubts. Was she relying too much on him? Was she becoming too dependent on his connections to succeed? The internal conflict left her restless, questioning her own worth and the authenticity of her feelings. One evening, as Emily worked late in her studio, Jake arrived at her door, as he often did after his long days of work. He knocked gently, and when Emily opened the door, his presence immediately brought comfort. "I thought we could grab dinner," Jake said with a warm smile, though Emily could see the exhaustion behind his eyes. She nodded, not wanting to disappoint him, but a weight seemed to settle between them. As they sat down at the small table in her apartment, Jake began to talk about the latest developments with his company. The conversation was casual at first, but soon he shifted the topic to something more personal. "Emily," Jake began, his voice softer than usual, "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had known this conversation was coming, but hearing it out loud made her nervous. "What about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying to figure out where we're going," Jake said, his eyes searching hers for an answer. "I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable, but I can't ignore what's been growing between us. I've grown to care for you more than I ever expected." Emily looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. She felt the same way, but the words seemed difficult to form. "Jake, I care about you too," she said, her voice trembling, "but I'm just afraid. I don't want to rely on you. I don't want to feel like I'm only where I am because of your help. I need to know that I can stand on my own." Jake listened quietly, his expression a mixture of understanding and concern. "I get it," he said after a moment, his voice gentle. "You're worried that I've been carrying you, that I've been a crutch in your journey. But Emily, that's not it at all. I believe in you, not because of what I've done for you, but because of who you are and the work you've put in. You've earned everything that's come your way. I just want to be there for you, as a friend, as someone who cares for you." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't realized how much she needed to hear those words, how much self-doubt had been clouding her judgment. "But I'm still afraid," Emily whispered. "What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough without you?" Jake reached across the table and took her hand in his grip firm and reassuring. "You don't need to be afraid, Emily. I know you're capable of achieving whatever you set your mind to. You've already proven that with your art, and even if you stumble along the way, I'll be here, cheering you on. But the truth is, you don't need me to succeed. You have everything you need within you." Emily looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of clarity. The fear that had been holding her back seemed to melt away in that moment. "Thank you, Jake," she said quietly, her voice filled with gratitude. "I needed to hear that more than you know," Jake smiled, squeezing her hand. "I'm always here for you, Emily, no matter what." That night, as Emily lay in bed, she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had come to understand that her success, her happiness, and her future were in her own hands. Jake had given her the support and belief she needed, but it was her determination and talent that had brought her this far. As the days passed, Emily began to take more control of her own life. She continued to pursue her art with a renewed sense of confidence, knowing that she was not only capable but worthy of the success she had achieved. And though Jake remained a supportive presence in her life, Emily had finally found her own footing, ready to face whatever the future held on her own terms. In the weeks that followed, Emily's confidence continued to grow as she started to embrace her success fully. Her art was becoming more widely recognized, and she was even invited to collaborate with other artists on various projects. For the first time in her life, she felt truly like an artist, and not just a struggling student. Her bond with Jake had also deepened. They spent more time together, talking about everything and nothing, and Emily found herself looking forward to their moments together. Yet, despite everything, there was still something weighing on her heart. She had built her career with Jake's help, and while she was incredibly grateful, there was a lingering thought that she was somehow indebted to him. She couldn't shake the feeling that their growing relationship might have been influenced by his wealth and connections. Jake had been a constant support, but Emily had always prided herself on her independence, and that feeling of being indebted unsettled her. She began pulling away, unintentionally distancing herself from him, even though she didn't want to. Jake noticed the change. He had been patient, supportive, and understanding, but he couldn't ignore the quiet tension between them anymore. One evening, after a long week of gallery showings and work meetings, Jake came over to her apartment, determined to address the elephant in the room. He knocked gently on the door, and when Emily opened it, he didn't wait for an invitation to step inside. "We need to talk," Jake said softly, his expression serious. Emily swallowed, unsure of what to expect. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked, his tone gentle yet concerned. Emily shifted uneasily. "What do you mean?" "You've been distant lately," Jake said, his eyes searching hers. "I can feel that something's off. Is it me? Or something else?" Emily hesitated, feeling a rush of emotions flood her. She had wanted to avoid this conversation for weeks, but now it seemed inevitable. She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "Jake, I'm not sure where we're going with this," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I've always been independent. I've worked so hard to get here, and I don't want to feel like I owe you everything. You've helped me so much, but I don't want to be reliant on you. I need to know that I can succeed on my own, without anyone else's help." Jake's face softened, and he reached out to take her hand. "Emily, you don't owe me anything. I've helped you because I believe in you. I want to see you succeed, but that doesn't mean you're dependent on me. You've worked hard for everything you've achieved. I'm just here to support you, not to hold you back." Emily looked down at their hands, her heart heavy. "I know you believe in me, Jake. But sometimes, it feels like I'm just in this because of you. I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet, without feeling like I'm just another person you helped." Jake nodded, his thumb gently brushing over her hand. "I understand," he said, his voice low, "and I'm sorry if I made you feel that way. But you've always been capable of standing on your own, Emily. You've proven that time and time again. I'm just here to help you along the way, not to take away your independence." Emily looked up at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "But what if I fail?" she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice clear. Jake smiled softly, his grip on her hand tightening reassuringly. "You won't fail, Emily. And even if you stumble, I'll be here for you. But it's you who will make the choice. You are in control of your own destiny. I've never doubted you, and I never will." In that moment, Emily realized that her fears weren't about Jake or his help. They were about herself, about her own insecurities and doubts. Jake had always seen her for who she truly was, not the struggling student, not someone relying on him, but an artist with immense talent and potential. Emily's chest tightened with gratitude, and she knew in that moment that her feelings for Jake weren't just about his wealth or success. They were about the person he was, the way he made her feel seen, heard, and understood. She took a deep breath and smiled at him. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. "I needed to hear that." Jake's smile was warm and reassuring. "Anytime, Emily. You're not alone in this. You never have been." As the conversation continued, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that she could stand on her own, and that she didn't need to carry the weight of her success alone. She had Jake by her side, but more importantly, she had herself. And that was enough. As the weeks went by, Emily found herself feeling more confident than ever. She had made peace with her fears, and her art career continued to flourish. However, despite everything going well, there was still an undercurrent of uncertainty, one that neither she nor Jake had addressed fully. The bond they shared was undeniable, but as time passed, Emily couldn't help but feel the weight of the differences between them. She had worked so hard to get to where she was, but Jake's wealth and success had played a significant role in her rise. Though he never made her feel indebted to him, a part of Emily wondered if their growing connection was built on more than just their shared passions. Was there a deeper layer to it? The questions lingered in her mind, and one evening, after another successful gallery show, she sat in her apartment, reflecting on the path she had taken. Jake had been a rock in her life, but the idea of standing entirely on her own feet was still something she longed for. She couldn't deny the way Jake made her feel cherished, understood, and supported, but Emily wasn't sure how much of that was a result of their professional relationship or if it was something more. That night, as Emily cleaned up after the show, Jake sent her a message. "I've been thinking," it began. "Maybe we should take a break, just the two of us. We've been so caught up in everything lately, and I think it would be good for us to step back for a bit. Away from work and all the hustle. What do you think?" Emily stared at the message for a long time before responding. Part of her wanted to say yes. She missed the carefree days when they would simply enjoy each other's company without the pressure of art shows, sales, and business deals. But another part of her hesitated. Could a break help them figure out where their relationship was going? Or was it just a way to avoid facing the deeper issues? She quickly typed a reply. "That sounds nice. Let's do it." The next weekend, they set off for a quiet retreat in the mountains. The cabin they rented was small but cozy, nestled among the trees with a breathtaking view of the valley below. Emily had never been to a place so peaceful. It felt like a world away from the bustling city life they both knew so well. The first evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of calm settle over her. For the first time in weeks, she was able to breathe without the constant pressure of her art career and the expectations that came with it. The conversation flowed easily between them, and Jake seemed more relaxed than Emily had ever seen him. As they spent the weekend hiking, cooking meals together, and talking about everything and nothing, Emily began to see Jake in a new light. He wasn't just the successful entrepreneur. He was someone who had been just as lost as she had been, trying to navigate a world full of expectations and pressures. But in the quiet of the mountains, surrounded by nature, Emily realized that the connection they shared wasn't just about business or art. It was about two people who had come into each other's lives at just the right moment, offering something neither of them knew they needed. On the final day of their retreat, they sat together by the lake, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Emily turned to Jake, her heart full. "I've been thinking," she said softly. "I know we've been through a lot, and I've had my doubts. But being here with you, away from everything, it feels right. I've learned so much about myself in the last few months, and I don't want to lose sight of who I am. But I also don't want to lose what we have." Jake took her hand in his eyes soft and full of understanding. "Emily, I'm not here to change you or take anything away from you. I'm here because I believe in who you are, and I always will. Whether it's in the mountains or in the city, I want to be by your side, but only if you're ready for that. You're not alone in this. And you don't have to carry everything on your own. We're both in this together, in every way." Emily smiled, her chest swelling with emotion. She had spent so long trying to find her place in the world, and now she finally understood. It wasn't about being independent or relying on someone else. It was about finding balance, about supporting each other and growing together. As they sat there, hand in hand, Emily knew that whatever the future held, she was ready to face it not just on her own, but with Jake by her side. As the days following their retreat in the mountains passed, Emily began to feel an overwhelming sense of peace. The weight that had been on her shoulders for so long had started to lift, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose in her life. The time away from the hustle of her career, the noise of expectations, and the complexity of her relationship with Jake had allowed her to step back and reflect. She had realized that her fear of dependency was not about Jake or his wealth. It was about her own insecurities. But after spending that time with him, away from everything, Emily finally understood that she was not dependent on Jake to succeed or to feel whole. He was a partner, someone who supported her dreams and believed in her, but she had always had the strength within her to achieve her goals. Emily's art career was thriving, and she was increasingly recognized for her unique style. The feedback from collectors and critics was positive, and more opportunities were coming her way. But with each new opportunity, she found herself confronting new doubts. Was she truly doing this for herself, or was it because of the doors Jake had opened for her? Was her success truly her own? One evening, as she sat in her studio working on a new piece, she received a call from one of her gallery partners, a well-known curator who had been instrumental in showcasing her work. "Emily, we need to talk." The curator's voice was serious, and Emily immediately felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "I've been hearing some rumors," the curator continued. "Some people are saying your success is more about your relationship with Jake than your talent. I want to make sure this doesn't affect the upcoming show. I need to know you're prepared to handle the pressure." Emily's mind raced. She hadn't realized that people might be talking about her in this way, and it hurt to think that her hard work could be overshadowed by speculation about her relationship. "I understand," Emily said, her voice steady despite the turmoil she felt inside. "I've worked hard for everything I have. I'm ready for whatever comes next." The conversation ended, but the weight of the words lingered in Emily's mind. She had always known that people would have opinions, but hearing this directly made her question everything. Was she being seen as a token of Jake's influence? Was her work not truly valued on its own merit? She spent the next few days in deep thought, considering what the curator had said. Emily knew that she had the talent, the passion, and the drive to succeed, but the fear of being reduced to her relationship with Jake was a shadow she couldn't ignore. She needed to confront the situation head-on, not just for her career, but for herself. Later that week, Emily met Jake at their usual spot, a quiet cafe they often visited when they wanted to escape the pressures of the outside world. Jake noticed immediately that something was off. "What's going on, Emily?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "You've been quiet lately." Emily took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Jake, I've been thinking," she began, her voice shaky. "I've been hearing rumors. People are saying that my success is because of you, that I'm only where I am because of who you are and the connections you've given me. And I need to know if that's true. I need to know if I'm truly succeeding because of my own talent, or if it's all been because of your influence." Jake looked at her, his expression serious. He didn't respond immediately, choosing instead to reach across the table and take her hand. "Emily, I understand why you're feeling this way," he said gently. "But the truth is, I've never done anything to take away from your talent. I've supported you because I believe in what you do. You've earned every bit of success that's come your way, and nothing will ever change that. You don't owe me anything, and I will never take credit for your hard work. It's all you." Emily felt a sense of relief wash over her as she listened to Jake's words. For the first time, she realized that her fears had been based on doubts she had carried within herself, not on anything Jake had done. He had always been her biggest supporter, but it was her talent that had gotten her this far. As they sat together, Emily made a decision. She would no longer let her insecurities dictate her path. She would continue to work hard, to push herself, and to create the art she loved. But she would also learn to trust in her own abilities and in the strength of her journey. As they left the cafe that night, Jake squeezed her hand and smiled at her. "You've got this, Emily. I believe in you, and I always will." Emily smiled back, her heart light. "Thank you, Jake. I believe in myself now, too." The weeks after their conversation at the cafe marked a new chapter in Emily's journey. She had made peace with her fears, embracing the fact that her success was her own, and that the support she had from Jake was just that support, not a crutch. Her art continued to grow in recognition, and her confidence as an artist reached new heights. She felt ready for whatever came next. As the spring season began to bloom, Emily was presented with an exciting opportunity. A major art magazine had reached out to feature her in their next issue, showcasing a collection of her work alongside some of the most promising emerging artists. This was the kind of recognition Emily had always dreamed of, and it felt like a huge step forward in her career. But with the excitement came anxiety. This would be her first time being featured on such a large platform, and the pressure to deliver was immense. The fear of failure, the doubt that had been lingering for so long, started to creep back in. She wondered if she was really ready for this kind of exposure. Jake, sensing her unease, took her aside one evening after they had spent the day working on new projects. "Emily, you've got this," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I know it's a big deal, but you've worked hard to get here. Don't let the pressure change anything. Just be yourself. Let your art speak for itself, and everything else will fall into place." Emily looked at him, taking in his words. "It's just a lot, you know? I've always been so focused on proving myself. What if this is too much? What if I mess it all up?" Jake smiled softly, reaching out to gently touch her shoulder. "You've already proven yourself, Emily. Your art has already spoken for you. You've earned this, and you're ready. Just trust yourself." Emily nodded, feeling comforted by his words, but the doubt still lingered in the back of her mind. As the day of the magazine shoot arrived, Emily felt a mix of excitement and fear. She stood before her pieces, the bright lights of the studio casting shadows that seemed to exaggerate the nerves she was trying to keep at bay. The photographer and the magazine editor were both kind, offering praise for her work, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being an imposter. She felt like she was still that struggling student, trying to make her mark in a world that seemed so far out of her reach. It wasn't until the shoot was over, and she stood alone in the quiet of the studio, looking at her art on display, that Emily finally allowed herself to take a breath. She had done it. She had made it this far on her own terms. She wasn't just a product of Jake's influence. She was Emily, the artist. She had carved out her place in this world. That evening, after a long day, Jake came by to see how she was doing. He found her in her studio, staring at the photos from the shoot. "So, how does it feel?" he asked, a smile playing at the corner of his lips. Emily turned to him, her eyes wide with emotion. "I did it," she said softly. "I really did it." Jake walked over, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I'm so proud of you, Emily. You've come so far, and you've done it all by being true to yourself." Emily smiled, her heart full. "Thank you, Jake, for everything. I couldn't have done it without you." Jake shook his head gently. "No, Emily. You did this yourself. I'm just glad I was able to witness it." The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of interviews, new art projects, and more gallery openings. Emily's name began to be recognized in the art world, and with every step forward, she grew more certain of who she was and what she was capable of. But the most important thing she had gained wasn't fame or recognition. It was the knowledge that she had finally found her own voice. She no longer felt like she had to prove herself to anyone. She had already done it. Emily knew that this was only the beginning, and the future was full of endless possibilities. She had learned to trust herself, to believe in her abilities, and to accept that she was worthy of the success she had earned. As the magazine feature hit the stands and her art was displayed in galleries across the city, Emily looked back on everything that had led her here. From the humble beginnings, from the doubts and fears, to standing in front of her artwork on a global platform, it all felt like a dream, but it was real. She had built this life, piece by piece, with her own hands, and nothing could take that away from her. The path ahead was unknown, but Emily was ready for whatever it held. With her art, her heart, and the support of those who believed in her, she knew there was nothing she couldn't accomplish. As Emily's career continued to soar, the recognition and success she had worked so hard for became a reality. The art world was beginning to take notice, and with every new exhibition and feature, she was proving to herself and to others that her talent was undeniable. But despite the outward success, there was a lingering emptiness that Emily couldn't shake. She had achieved everything she had set out to do, and yet she still felt incomplete. The life she had built, the art she had created, and the career she had nurtured, all of it had come with the support of Jake, the man who had been by her side since the very beginning. Jake had been there for her in ways that no one else had. He had been her mentor, her confidant, and her greatest cheerleader. But over time, Emily realized that the relationship had evolved into something more than she had expected. She had feelings for Jake that went beyond friendship, beyond gratitude. She cared about him in a way that was deeper than she had initially understood. But the fear of losing herself, of becoming dependent on him, still lingered. Emily didn't want to jeopardize everything she had worked for, and she certainly didn't want to risk losing the independence she had fought so hard to gain. It was late one evening when the two of them found themselves in the studio together, surrounded by unfinished pieces and the soft hum of music. Jake had been working late as well, as he often did, overseeing his business and making sure everything ran smoothly. They hadn't spoken much during the day, both of them lost in their respective worlds. Emily, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something needed to change, that there was something unsaid between them that was starting to build a wall. As Jake looked up from his phone, he caught her gaze. "You've been quiet tonight," he said, his voice gentle but concerned. "What's going on?" Emily took a deep breath, her fingers resting on the edge of the canvas she was working on. She had put this conversation off for weeks, but now it felt like the right time. "Jake, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Jake set his phone down and turned toward her, his eyes filled with patience. "What's on your mind?" Emily hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About us, about everything. I know you've always been there for me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm scared. Scared that I'm relying on you too much. Scared that I'm losing myself in this. I've worked so hard to build this career, to prove myself, and I don't want to lose sight of who I am. I don't want to be defined by anyone else, even you." Jake's expression softened as he listened to her. He stood up and walked over to her side, his presence warm and reassuring. "Emily, I understand. I know how hard you've worked, and I respect that. I never wanted to take away your independence, but I also want you to know that it's okay to lean on people, to let others in. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm not here to take away your strength or your success. I'm here to support you in whatever way you need." Emily's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight of her fears begin to lift. She realized that she had been so focused on maintaining control over every aspect of her life that she had forgotten how to truly accept help from others. She had been afraid that relying on Jake would make her weak, that it would somehow take away from her achievements. But now, as she looked at him, she understood that true strength wasn't about doing everything alone. It was about knowing when to accept support and knowing when to trust the people who truly cared about her. "Jake," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to push you away. I just needed to figure this out for myself. But I see now that I don't have to do everything alone, and I don't want to lose you, not in any way." Jake smiled, his eyes warm and filled with affection. "You haven't lost me, Emily. You never will. You're not alone in this, and you never have to be." In that moment, Emily realized that their relationship wasn't just about gratitude or dependence. It was about partnership, mutual respect, and trust. She had learned that she could stand on her own, but it didn't mean that she had to do everything alone. With Jake by her side, she felt stronger, more confident, and ready for whatever the future held. As the evening went on, the tension that had been building between them dissolved, replaced by a deeper sense of understanding and connection. They didn't need to have all the answers right away, but they knew that together they could face whatever challenges came their way. And for the first time in a long time, Emily felt at peace with herself, knowing that she had everything she needed within her, and with Jake by her side. As the months passed, Emily's life continued to evolve in ways she never thought possible. She had grown into the artist she had always wanted to be. But more than that, she had become someone who truly believed in herself. The struggles, doubts, and fears that once seemed insurmountable were now distant memories, and they had been replaced by a deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. Her art career flourished, and her name was now known in the industry. Invitations to showcase her work kept pouring in, and Emily found herself managing multiple gallery exhibitions, each one more successful than the last. The recognition she had worked for was no longer just a dream. It was a reality she embraced with both pride and humility. But Emily knew that this success was not solely hers. It had been shaped by the people who believed in her, by the support she had received from Jake, and by the lessons she had learned along the way. Despite the professional triumphs, the most significant change in her life had come from within. She had learned to accept her vulnerabilities and to understand that it was okay to rely on others when needed. The independence she had fought so hard for was not about doing everything on her own. It was about choosing the right people to walk beside her on her journey. Jake remained by her side, not just as a mentor, but as a partner, someone who understood her like no one else. Their bond had deepened over the years, from the early days of their friendship to something more profound, something neither of them had expected. They had become a team, supporting one another through the highs and lows of life, and their love had blossomed in ways that felt natural and unforced. One afternoon, as they sat together in the studio, Emily turned to Jake, her heart full of gratitude. "Jake, I've been thinking," she said softly. "I can't believe how far we've come. From the days when I was just struggling to make ends meet, to now, being able to live my dream. And through all of it, you've been there. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." Jake smiled, his eyes filled with affection. "Emily, you've done it all. I've been lucky enough to watch you grow and to be a part of your journey. You've always had the strength and talent within you. I just helped you see that." Emily nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I know that now," she said quietly, "and I realize that I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I'm not just the girl who got lucky. I'm the artist who worked for this, who fought for this. I'm proud of who I am." Jake reached over and gently wiped away her tear, his smile warm. "You should be proud, Emily. You've earned everything you've achieved, and I couldn't be prouder of you." Emily leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. "And I couldn't have asked for a better person to share this with," she whispered. Together, they had built something beautiful, not just in the art world, but in their own lives. Their journey had been full of challenges, but it had also been full of love, growth, and unwavering support. And as Emily looked toward the future, she knew that this was only the beginning. The road ahead was full of new opportunities, new challenges, and new dreams to chase. But no matter where life took them, she knew she would face it with Jake by her side, and with the confidence that she could accomplish anything she set her mind to. The chapter they had started together was far from over. In fact, it felt like they were just beginning the most exciting part of their journey. As Emily gazed at the canvas before her, she smiled. The future was bright, and she was ready for it, knowing that the best was yet to come. In this touching tale of ambition, love, and self-discovery, Emily's journey from a struggling student to a successful artist unfolds. As she navigates the complexities of her career and relationships, Emily learns valuable lessons about independence, trusting others, and finding true success. The story follows Emily as she rises to fame, facing the pressures of success, dealing with personal insecurities, and overcoming the obstacles that come with being part of a high-society world. Her relationship with Jake, a millionaire, becomes an important catalyst in her personal growth as she learns to embrace her worth and balance love with ambition. As the story progresses, Emily finds herself faced with difficult choices and challenging situations, all of which test her ability to stay true to herself while navigating the world of art, fame, and wealth. This is one of the most inspiring millionaire stories, showing that success is not just about money, but about the emotional journey, self-belief, and the courage to embrace both the highs and lows of life. Emily's transformation into a confident, independent artist serves as a powerful reminder that success comes from within. As Emily's career continues to soar, the story unfolds with a perfect blend of love, mentorship, and overcoming self-doubt. This is a must-read for anyone who loves millionaire stories that delve into the emotional depth of human connections and personal growth. Ultimately, Emily realizes that her true success lies not in the wealth or fame she gained, but in her ability to trust herself and pursue her passion with confidence. In the end, her relationship with Jake shows that even in a world of luxury and privilege, the most important things are love, trust, and believing in one's own worth. If you enjoy millionaire stories with a heartfelt and emotional twist, this narrative will leave you inspired and hopeful for your own journey.